Friends, welcome back to our last Yin-Style and meditation practice in our challenge. I just want to say that I've had so much fun and it's been so nourishing to film this series for you. I hope they're practices that you can come back to often to decompress. For this practice, we're going to look at again the inner line of our legs. We might add in a couple of twists looking at the Yin-Style frog shape. And to do that, we might want to have a couple of props. So again, I want to mention I often do these in my bed. This one might be particularly nice to do on a soft surface because there can be some pressure on our inner knees in the frog shape. I'm going to ask you to have a bolster if you have it, or pillows. Pillows will work, or a blanket roll. And I just like to have blocks around in case I want to extra prop myself up, but you'll definitely want 1 or 2 blankets for this. And also feel free to throw a blanket over your mat for this practice. We'll start with a little bit of active work, and then we're going to get into a couple of variations of frog. Let's begin in a seat. So you can sit up on your bolster when you're ready. Maybe you're kneeling or sitting cross-legged. And we'll begin by taking, if it feels okay for you, taking 1 or 2 hands to the region of your physical heart. So a little to the left of the center of your chest. And you might close your eyes here. And you might even take a breath in and around where you feel your heart to be. If it feels safe and good for you, you might feel into connecting with the beat of your heart. In Sanskrit, the name for the heart is Hridaya, the beautiful word. And as we enter this practice, a reminder that we might come out of our cognitive thinking mind and more into our intuitive sensing for what's right for us, feeling our way into the practices. This is your practice. So you might, I love doing this if it's okay for you, give a little circular massage with your hands to the region of where your heart resides, and you can switch directions with that. It can be very light and gentle, very tender. Maybe a breath in, breath out. You can let your hands come on down, and I'll invite you to come into a tabletop shape. So you can come onto your hands and your knees and give some love to your wrists by shifting a little forwards or circling through your shoulders over top of your wrists. Maybe you switch the orientation of your hands so your fingers point out to the side or even towards your knees. You can always switch directions there. Inviting yourself to slow down. That might make your breath a little softer, a little smoother, a little slower. And with your hands more pointed forwards, you can take your right leg out to the side. So we'll take our right knee and our right foot to point out, opening the inner line of your right leg. And circle into your hips. So keep that circling going of your shoulders, and now your hips are really moving in a circle forwards and left and right and back. And this might make you come a little off of your right toes. You can add in some free-form movements and some spinal undulations into this. And if your left knee wants to be a little padded and you're not on a soft surface, you could put a blanket underneath it and start to crawl up so that you're in a kneeling shape. So you're going to be in the gate shape, and take your right elbow towards your right knee and then circle your left arm out and up And you might stay there for a breath or two or hold onto the back of your head and aim with your elbow up towards the ceiling. You can also slide your right knee a little over your right toes and then back towards your left hip. And explore a little sliding, a little lateral glide through your pelvis, side to side. Maybe there's a big free-form circle in your top arm as well. And then we'll circle it down to come back onto our hands and knees. I'm gonna shift that blanket out and get a little movement in there, rebounding from that gate shape. You could go into an arch of your spine, a cow shape, and a round of your spine, an angry cat. Coming to neutral. When you're ready, let's take our left leg out to the side, pointing the left toes and left knee out to the side, and adding in a little circle. I'm gonna go right ahead and put that blanket underneath my right knee. Circling around your wrists, your shoulders, and your hips, going around yourself. This might make your left toes pop up. Make this movement yours, so add in any movements that intuitively feel useful for you. And you can crawl on up, so you're up in a more upright position, kneeling position for your gate shape, and left elbow can come to left knee, and you can circle your right arm up. You could hold onto your head or keep that arm up into the air, and you might slide your left knee over your left toes and then back towards your right hip. There might be a big circle through your top arm, freeing up your chest and pectoral area. And then you can come on back down to your hands and knees and find some shifting forwards and back to rebound from that, or a cat-cow, arching your spine. And then angry cat, press the ground away. Let's come to neutral, and I'll invite you to come right down onto your abdomen. And I'm gonna take that blanket here underneath my right knee, take my right knee up and out to the side so my knee is fairly in line with my right hip. You can play with going a little higher, a little lower. I like to have some padding under that knee and coming into a bit of a cobra form in the upper body, so elbows more underneath your shoulders. Now check out if this feels unsafe for your lower back, and if it does, you can try aiming your sitting bones down towards the back of your mat, kind of dragging the tailbone towards the bottom of your mat a little, and see if that can give you a bit more comfort in your low back. And I wanted to invite you to bring a little bit of strength work into your right leg. One more option is you could stack your hands and lower your forehead, and that might bring some more ease into your low back as well. I feel like that's right for me right now. So wherever you are, can you think about lightening your right knee off of the ground, almost as if you're going to lift it off of the ground using the strength of your hip. Lightening that right knee off of the ground for a couple of seconds, gradually moving into that. And then melting your whole right hip, melting your right knee into the ground. One more time like that, thinking about lifting the right knee, lightening it off the ground, engaging the outer right hip. And then melting, that strength work, melting, resistance, letting the right knee sink into the ground. For the last few breaths here, you can stay with your head down, or maybe in a bit of a back bend if you like, cobra. One more option here is to find a twist away from your right knee. I'm going to take a block underneath my right temple and slide my right arm on a diagonal, palm facing up. And let my right temple come onto a pillow or a blanket or a block. You're invited to take 3 more breaths here. 1, 2, maybe your breath is a little softer, a little smoother, a little longer. And 3. And bringing yourself up and into the middle. If you're in the twist, sliding your right leg out towards straight. And I'm going to widen through my legs here so they're about as wide as the mat. You can stack your hands out in front, place your forehead down, and give your pelvis a little wobble side to side, almost so you can feel your legs kind of jelly rolling side to side. Pause in stillness there. If it works for you to bring your awareness back to your heart, sometimes I like to have imagery of draining my brain, the energy around my brain into my heart. Energetically moving away from cognition, cognitive processing, into the feeling of more intuitive sensing. And we're going to switch sides from that so you can come up onto your elbows. I'm going to take that blanket prop so my left knee comes up on that, adjusting the height of your left knee. And it might work for your elbows to be more under your shoulders or to come more forwards, stacking your hands and resting your forehead. If you feel a big lift of your sitting bones and tailbone, you could see how it feels to anchor your sitting bones down towards the back of your mat, away from your head. And that might give you a feeling of more length in your low back. You don't have to be stuck to that cue. Another thing you could imagine is the top rim of your pants or around the top rim of your sacrum, lifting that a little towards the ceiling. So instead of it moving towards the floor, tilting your pelvis into an anterior tilt, it's lifting towards the ceiling, bringing your pelvis into a little bit more of a neutral position. If you like to pour in some of that strength work, you can think about your left knee on the ground now. And with the muscles of your outer hip, try to lift the left knee off of the ground or lighten it off of the ground. If your elbows are on the ground, your elbows can kind of help by pushing your elbows into the floor to get a bit more lift, full body sort of global tension to get that left knee to lift, hugging in and around your left hip. And then melting your left leg, melting around your left hip. And maybe you soften and slow your breath. And we can try that again, lifting through the outer knee, lightening the left knee off the ground, maybe even lifting it a little. Gradually adding in more intensity to that lift, and then melting. Weight of the knee drops, outer hip releases. Breath in and out. And for our last little moment here, you might come up towards your elbows in more of a back bend shape. Maybe you take your prop block blanket or pillow underneath your left temple, and on a diagonal, let your left arm slide away from your left knee. When I breathe here, I like to imagine I am filling up my low back with my breath. Almost like my breath is like a balloon in my low abdomen and pelvis, and when I breathe in, the balloon fills, making contact with my low back, my sides, and my belly. One more breath there. We can come on out of that when you're ready, sliding your left leg towards a straighter and giving a little wobble through your hips. Maybe that wobble reverberates into a jelly roll of your legs side to side. Sensing into some stillness, if you like, on your abdomen. You can rebound here with something like a child's form, so that might mean hips more over top of your knees and letting your head and shoulders drop to the ground, or some of you, if your knees allow, your hips can come right back towards your heels and you can let your low back lengthen. Slowly coming up, so we'll move towards our frog shape. I'm going to use a bolster for that, and you might want to open up a blanket to support your inner knees if you're not on a soft surface. So there's a couple of ways to do this. You could be in a wide-legged child's form if that works better for you. Your knees wide and your big toes touching underneath you. Soles of your feet flipped up, either staying upright or placing that bolster or a prop for your abdomen, maybe a couple of pillows, and letting your one temple fall to the side. Some of you might want to do this without a prop underneath your abdomen, coming down onto your forearms. or taking your hands out in front of you. So for our frog shape, if you like, you can set yourself up so that your ankle lines up a little more with your knee, your inner foot is on the ground, and I really love to do this with a prop underneath my abdomen. Then I can reach out through my inner knees, bring the abdomen under, or the prop under my abdomen, and here I'm going to plug my elbows down into the ground and do a little bit of a slide forwards and back of my pelvis. So we started this practice with a slide side to side of the pelvis. Now exploring a forwards and back movement. So my hips move back towards the line of my knees and then a little forwards of the line of my knees. So for me, it has been nourishing to add in some strength work to my flexibility work. If it feels more safe for you and more comforting to really melt into this shape, take a temple to one side, go for that. So intuitively sensing into what you need out of this practice. And you can always come out of this shape before I do. Again, some of you might not be using a prop and bringing yourself more abdomen right down to the ground. That's a little too much hot sauce for me today, so I'm going to add the bolster under my belly. So here's a couple of things we can do before we melt into whichever shape you're in for frog or open child's form, open kneed child's form. You can begin by squeezing your knees in towards each other, so activating the inner line of your legs and squeezing in. This might lift your pelvis a little bit and shorten the inner line of your legs. You can gradually increase that pressure. I'm almost trying to purse my blanket up in between my knees under my pelvis and hold that for a couple of moments and then slowly release, melting knees away from each other. And you might come down to take one temple down and take a couple of breaths. Okay, here's another activation that we can play with. I'm going to think about lifting my knees or lightening my knees. I can't lift them off of the ground here. Activating the musculature around my outer hips, lifting the knees, lightening them off the ground, gradually increasing pressure, seeing where I'm at with that strength work for 1, 2, 3, and then melting my knees back down to the ground, really weighting them. And I'm going to turn my head to the other side for 1, 2, 3. So you might be ready to come out of this pretty spicy shape for many of us, or if you like, you can take the prop out from underneath you and place it like it's a pillow for your temple. As we did in the previous half frog, you can plant your left hand and slide your right palm facing up, under you till your head comes down to the prop. For a breath in, breath out. switching sides. So I'm actually activating quite a bit through my inner legs, that inner leg squeeze to support my back in this shape. So I'm going to give that pressure through my right hand, slide through left palm facing up. Temple might come down to the prop for a breath and breath out. Okay, I'm going to come through the center here. And I'm going to take my toes together like a wide-legged child's form and bring my hips a bit forwards, squeeze my knees in, and if you're not in the wide-legged child's form, sink back towards a wide-legged child's form for a moment. And then come on up and bring knees right together. A couple of options for rebound here. So you might bring your knees right together, sinking back towards your child's form. Or you might feel like you want to be up on your hands and knees with your knees squeezing in towards each other and circling your hips. Coming back into that more free-form movement. For 1. For 2. For 3. Whichever variation you are in, there's 2 choices for your final twist. Either hips a little higher, taking your right arm through palm facing up and pressing into your left hand to find an upper back twist. Or your right hand can come through with your hips settled back down on your heels, coming into that twist from a child's form. So again, intuitively sensing where you'd like to land for a couple of breaths. And switching sides. So you can be a bit more upright, left palm coming through, pressing into the right hand. Or hips more back towards your heels. Left hand through palm facing up. When you're ready, coming on up, and you might want to lie in a Shavasana, final resting shape with a blanket over top of you, or meet me in your meditation seat. I'm going to put a blanket over top of my legs to keep some heat in. Pelvis more upright. Let's come back to those movements with our head. You can do this lying down or seated. That can just gently activate the vagus nerve, which can kick in a little more of a parasympathetic response, so a little more calm and rest potential for our system. So see if it works for you. So in an upright spine or a lying down spine, turn your head to look over your right shoulder, and then back to center. And turn your head to look over your left shoulder, and back to center. Tucking chin to chest, back to center, and lifting chest and chin to look up. Back to center. If you like, you can take one or both hands onto where your physical heart is. And maybe you get that imagery of draining tension out of your skull, out of your brain, into your heart, filling up your heart. Emptying your head. And this is simply imagery because it doesn't mean that all your cognition is in your skull. We have a nervous system channel that goes all the way down our spine, so it might be quite different than that. But if this imagery works for you, of draining out of that thinking mind and coming into feeling, sensing as a method for right now. Maybe there's a little circular massage around your heart. One way and then the other, tenderly. Letting your hands come down, if you like, into your lap. Perhaps it's useful for you to use sight or sound as your anchor. Or you might come back to breath, natural breath. You might bring in a bigger breath and take your hands together at your chest or your heart, if that gesture is meaningful for you. And take a moment to acknowledge the work that you did today to attend to yourself to make choices that support you. And you might think about paying that forwards, the benefits of your practice, to other beings. Thank you so, so much for being here with me for this series. May you have peace.